What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Liam, and today I'm going to be going over the brand new G-Wolves HTX, the 4K version. I'm going to be comparing it to other popular mice on the market. That way I can help you decide whether or not this is going to be the right mouse for you. Alright, so here we have the 4K version of the HTX, and as you can see, it's coming around about 42-43 grams. The reason I opted for the one without the holes is I don't mind having holes on the top of the mouse right there, but what does tend to kind of drive me nuts is they got the holes in the top of the switch there. So I just decided for a more comfortable experience and opting out by getting a little bit of a heavier version. But not that I think that it'd be too much of a difference, but I do think that I'm happy with my decision. So let's get the technical details out of the way here really quick. This is sporting a 3395 sensor, and I did opt in for the 4K version. So this features their Zippy 60 million click switches, and they're a little bit heavier. I don't mind them too much. There is a slight bit of pre-travel here on the switch, but overall they do sound pretty clicky, and they do feel really good in game. I do feel like they made a huge improvement on the side buttons here. I don't know why. I don't know if they did even make an improvement, but this copy feels different. They just feel a little bit clickier and more tactile. So I do love what they're doing with that. As far as the mouse, I haven't seen anybody really talk about this yet, any other reviewers. So everybody's always comparing the weight balance front to back when you hold in the middle like that. And I'm sorry, that's a bad angle, but what nobody really talks about that much, I don't see anybody talking about, is the middle. If you look here closely, like it still is a little bit heavy on the side buttons, obviously, because there's side buttons over there, but it's not as bad as other versions. But it's not, oh, it's all shaky right there. I'm trying to get underneath the mouse, so I'm not pinching it. But yeah, you can see it's still a little heavy on the side, but it balances pretty well. Now, I actually noticed this big time with this mouse is when you're using something like the Final mouse. The Final mouse is extremely heavy on the left side of the mouse. And what I was actually doing is, when I was comparing the two and I was playing with them, I was playing Apex Legends, obviously tracking a lot. And what I did notice is when you're swiping left to right, you kind of feel that the mouse is a bit heavier over here with this one. I feel like the balancing on this is just solid. And you can argue and say, yeah, well, it's supposed to be a lighter mouse. It's actually not really lighter. This, let me see here. This is actually coming in. Actually, I think they weigh the exact same. Let's see here. So that's coming about 42. Okay. Well, I guess this is heavier. That's interesting. I weighed another one. Let me grab my other one. Huh. So, okay. So apparently the 10s version, for whatever reason, is weighing a couple grams heavier than this one. But you even notice the difference with this one when you're swiping left and right really fast. I don't know, this one just feels, the balance on it is so good. But anyways, if you look here, you can see what they do to help out with that balance. This is like, they've cleared out the PCB on this side where the side buttons are, and they've shifted the PCB more to this side to distribute the weight. And with this newer version, my absolute most favorite change was that they added the power button over here. So it kind of balances out the weight from left to right, and you can totally feel it in this mouse when you're tracking. Maybe not so much at first, obviously, but when you're playing very high level play, you definitely notice a difference in finding it easier to adjust your tracking going from left to right. But I love the switch implementation on here. It works absolutely perfect compared to the 4K of the HTS PLUS. It's got this little pick here, which if you guys use this, when I first got this, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of a bummer, but whatever, I get used to it. But honestly, this thing drove me nuts. I made this mouse for a couple days, and just, I don't know why I like to turn my mouse off. I guess you don't necessarily have to, but I like to turn my mouse off when I'm not using it. And yeah, just having to get up every morning and find this, and sometimes I'd lose it, it'd get tucked like underneath my speaker or something. So definitely good to have got rid of that. But my favorite thing about G-Wolves, honestly, is, you know, I've seen them get kind of flack here and there, but the reality of it is every time they come out with a new product, every time, I'm just blown away. And if you think about it, the thing that really impressed me about this mouse is every version of mouse, maybe not every single one, but I think because the Viper Mini's kind of different than the Viper Ultimate, obviously. It's got that more aggressive. I actually got rid of my Viper Mini, but this is pretty much almost a similar clone here. The glorious Model 1 Pro feels very similar to the, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but they feel very similar from what I remember having the Viper Mini. This one's got the hump, and the slant right here is more aggressive, the way it tapers off. Whereas the Viper V2 Pro, just overall in general, it doesn't taper off as quickly. And if you've used this mouse, which is very popular, it feels like a bigger, longer, flatter mouse in the hand compared to the smaller shape. But anyway, the point I was getting at is every other mouse out there, for the most part, what they'll do is they'll make a medium version or a large version, obviously, and then they'll make the smaller version and they just taper everything down. So the reason that I like this mouse so much is this mouse feels unique in its own. It doesn't feel like somebody just took a mouse and that already existed and just shrunk every type of portion down about it. And how that's great is I feel like this mouse feels unique for its size and its shape. Like, it just feels right. It doesn't feel like a mouse that is just smaller. It feels like they took every little detail into consideration. Like, for example, you think it'd just be a flatter version of this, but it's not. It's actually a bit longer. And besides the fact that it's a bit longer, the shape is not similar at all. It might look similar, but if you look here, when you're holding it, the sides, like, see how they're like flatter and they like raise up? Like, it does slant, but it's like not an aggressive slant. So the hump, it goes up to a point, and then the hump is pretty high on this mouse. Whereas with this one, it starts slanting immediately, and look at that. It's hard to tell from that angle, but it's a pretty aggressive slant, like right off the bat. And what's really cool about it is these sides right here are wider. Like, if you compare to, this is my biggest problem with all the smaller mice, just my personal opinion. I feel like these mice are too skinny for me. But if you could see there, it fills up your hands up higher, a lot bit wider. So I love the shape. I love the shape of the Viper Mini. I love this mouse. I love the shape of it. I think it's awesome. But again, I like having the smaller mouse, but my only complaint that I've ever really had about the smaller mice is when they make them smaller, they get too narrow for me. But this one doesn't do that. This one feels like all the dimensions were made perfectly for this mouse. So just looking at it like this in the camera, it looks almost like the shape is kind of like the G Pro Superlight. But to be completely honest with you, if you're thinking that, these don't feel anything alike at all. I know this is the most popular shape out, but I absolutely hate this shape. It just feels like a potato to me. I don't know. It just is too high. The hump's too high. I don't mind the length so much. It's a little long. But with this one, you can literally play this any style. You can, let me get that out of the way. You can fingertip it very easily fingertip it. You can do a relaxed claw on it. I mean, obviously you can't get a good palm on this. You still can, but it's kind of short to get. I wouldn't use this for palm, but the shape is just, in my opinion, it's just perfect. This is in my opinion, this is the best small mouse shape that has ever come out, because it feels unique and it feels like it was made to be this size. That's what I love about G-Wolves. They're constantly trying to do like different things that nobody else is doing, like these skate feet, for example. Most people are just doing like a copy of skate feet or something like that. These are very small, and by the way, the skates on the feet feel phenomenal. So using it with the artisan pads, this one right here is the Red Heian. I have every artisan pad out there, but I've tried it on a couple of them, and the performance is just flawless. And overall, this mouse is a top competitor. It comes in 4K. It's got the great click latency. Unfortunately, I don't have an LDAT. I'm trying to get my hands on one, but once I do, I'd love to share that data with you guys. But anyways, 4K implementation. I love where the sensor is positioned, the weight and feel of the mouse. Absolute banger. So the weight, everything, they just constantly improve. Have had absolutely no issues with this mouse as far as the 4K performance, any sensor issues. It is just spot on. And switching back and forth between all my other mice when testing this, I always find myself going back to this mouse, and it just performs flawlessly. So if you're definitely thinking about picking this up, I don't think you should hesitate, honestly, especially if you love small mice, because like I said, they are the one company, in my opinion, that is just killing it with the smaller type of mice. So in my opinion, these are the closest mice that it compares to on the market. And again, I apologize. I got rid of my Viper Mini just because I was never using it because of cord. But again, the glorious Series 1 Pro is a pretty comparable clone to it. So here we go, the HTX right here. The first mouse that I would like to compare it to that is easily available in computer shops like Micro Center, stuff like that, is the glorious Model O minus. So the comparison between these two is, which shape do I prefer? HTX all day. Let me show you why. This one, if you can see, the glorious is a lot more narrow. This one's a little bit wider. I prefer that. If you want to look at these two, as far as the shape goes, the glorious feels much longer in hand. And as you can see here, the hump tapers off quicker, where this one takes longer to go out. So this one is going to fill up your hand much more. So if you're more of a claw grip type of a person, then this might be best for you. But as far as the width goes, this one feels a little wider for the hump, but again, this one overall feels wider in the hand, the HTX, because of the fact that like it kind of tapers off slower and it's wider up here, whereas this one gets narrow pretty quick. It moves to get narrow pretty fast. So that's the differences between those two right there. All right, the Series 1 Pro. And again, it's kind of the issue here is that this feels great. The hump feels higher, and it's not so much that it's higher, it's that this one tapers off more aggressively, whereas this one slowly tapers out. And this one is, again, it's wider. It doesn't curve and go as wide as quickly as this one does. So if you could see kind of there, look how much more narrow that gets. This mouse just feels more narrow, whereas this one just feels bulkier and wider right here. So this one fills out the hands a little bit more. Again, maybe not so much of an issue if your fingertip gripping the mouse, which I do. I kind of switch back and forth. I got a hybrid fingertip to relaxed claw on it, but definitely for relaxed claw, this feels better. And if I had to pick one for fingertip, again, this is just wider. It just feels more, it just feels more stable to me. So I do prefer that. Now this, the final mouse is my main. the small for a long time. It's not even so much that I felt like this is comfortable. It's just that for whatever reason, I've always performed best on this mouse. But how do these two differ? They're actually pretty similar. The thing is I feel like the final mouse tapers up longer. If you can see that, kind of goes straight up for a while. Like when you're holding this mouse, it's not taller, but it feels taller because the way the slants are, they go up. They go up before they start to taper in. Where again, this one starts tapering in immediately, but this has a wider rear filling than this one does. So when you're playing this, the only way I can really compare it is this one feels taller, like almost more brickier than this one. But this one just, I feel like, conforms to the hands better and feels more comfortable and natural to the way that your hand is shaped. Great mice. Again, the balancing in this one I feel like is better, even though they weigh pretty much the same. So, and this is 4K. So whether or not you guys have used 4K, I love it. I think it's great. I play on 360 hertz monitor. Not the biggest difference in the world, but you definitely do notice more stability. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And then next one, if you have a Hottie Plus, I have both the classic and the 4K version. But I actually love this mouse. My issues with it, not that there's issues, but just being really picky, obviously, preference-wise, is that the hump was just a little too high for me. It was aggressive hump. And this one feels similar to the final mouse, in my opinion, kind of like brickier, but this one definitely has the hump sticks out and protrudes way more. So I'm not really into having such a high hump on my mice, and that was the only thing really that was keeping me back with this mouse. I still liked it and I got used to it, but overall I always kind of preferred, just personally, the shape of the final mouse more. So I've never had a problem with this mouse. I think this mouse performs great. Just minor improvements like moving the switch, having a lower filling to the ground. I just feel like with this one you have way more control. So if I had to rate these, in my personal opinion, I would do it like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And how I prefer these mice with the way that I play with that type of grip style. Fingertip, relaxed claw. Yeah, so I hope that helps. If there's any other mice you guys want me to compare it to, or again, I've watched many mice videos and reviews in my days, and I've always been interested in getting a shape, but I never really when you watch these reviews, it's really hard, obviously, to tell when you're on screen. You can't really see the mouse in person, 3D dimensional, and actually hold it in your hands. So I'm just doing the best that I can to try and help you guys out. If you like these mice, absolutely think you should give this a shot. If you feel like these mice are too flat for you, this mouse feels a bit flatter, so it might not really work out for you. It might not be what you're looking for. But for me personally, I like having a little bit more of a flatter feeling mice. Not too flat, obviously, but because I just feel like when you're sliding your hand across the mouse pad like this compared to this, I feel like the flatter you get, like the more stable and the more control that you actually do have. So this works out for me a lot. And in all actuality, when I first got the mouse and I picked it up, I immediately noticed it felt flat, and I was like, I don't know, this might be too flat for me. But literally I played 2 games with it, and after 2 games I was just like, okay. I started to understand the shape, and it just felt more natural. And then actually trying to go back to these shapes, you can still go back and it's not a huge difference, but you definitely notice the subtleties that make this mouse so great. Thank you guys very much. If you have any other questions or anything I can do to help you guys out with, please let me know. And thanks for watching.